All right, guys, yesterday we worked on drawing the eye. So we are going, we did not have time to get to the eyebrow, so we are going to start with that today. This is my example from yesterday, and as I was looking at it, I don't think I have quite enough room in here to teach the actual, have enough room to do the eyebrow. So what I'm going to do, or what I did, is I just sketched up real fast just another little eye. It doesn't have the same amount of detail as my other eye does, but that's okay. I needed just to have the room. So if you are in that same pickle, you might pause this video and sketch you up another eye. You don't need to worry about the shading and stuff. Even if you just do the outline and you do need the eye crease, and then you'll probably also need kind of a line for the side of the nose. And then that line kind of continues up into our eyebrow bone structure. This is not our eyebrow. This is just kind of the area of where we're going to put our eyebrow. Okay, that's more for where our forehead has our eyebrow bone. Okay, so again, a lot of people, there's lots of different shapes of eyebrows. I know there's what is fashionable, and then there is what is more or less real life. So I'm going to kind of just teach you basically that you can shape them however you want. You do want them to kind of lay right down on that bone structure, which is why we have that guide, and how to apply your hair strokes. Okay, so for most people, they're going to kind of start right here, sort of like where the corner of the eye is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just similar to how I told y'all to pull your lashes, you're going to, basically start with your pencil and then lift it up as you pull, and then that's going to help the line taper, and that's going to make it look more realistic. Okay, so I'm going to, and you're going to want shorter strokes, overlapping strokes, and they're usually kind of a little bit more spiky up towards the front, and then they kind of start to grow back this way. But I'm overlapping my strokes. I'm still doing that, put it on paper and lift up as I pull. And you don't really, if you want it more realistic, you don't really want it nice and shaped. You could tell that that's more drawn on, more just not natural. So I would be okay with a little bit of irregularity in your eyebrow. Okay, we kind of want to see where that hair follicle starts. So usually it's thicker up here, and then it kind of tapers as it gets back. However, men usually have bushier eyebrows than women do. So, and sometimes they're bushier in the middle. Sometimes it kind of goes bushy right here, and then it's kind of tapers and tapers. So you have to kind of just be aware of the individual, and it's going to kind of go back sort of about right here. If you were to kind of do a line going this way, it's going to kind of end back here, but it's just going to kind of taper for most people. So overlapping strokes, pull from the base up with your pencil to kind of give that natural hair look. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of an eyebrow, where they kind of fall on the structure. Now again, this line here, that's just like an indicator of where our eyebrow bone is. So you don't really want that hard line there. So if you still have it, you might either erase it or blend it in. Because where our eyebrow bone is, we catch more light right there on our face. So it probably won't be really dark, skin-wise, from the lighting. It's going to be more lighter because there's a highlight kind of right there. So that's the basics of an eyebrow. Now we're going to also move into learning how to draw a nose. Okay, I'm going to do this on a separate piece of paper, or actually I'm just going to flip it over and use the back. Okay, I do have some handouts, some work, just a kind of step-by-step for how we draw our features. So I'll probably post those online just so that you have a reference to them. But I need you to, I'll probably put those in a separate post altogether. I don't know what that is. All right, some little smudge on my paper, but that's okay. So we are going, this is, again, there's more than one way to draw noses. There's more than one way to draw eyes and all that. This is the way I like to do it, and I feel like I usually get pretty good results when I do it this way. So, let me zoom in just a little bit. So I like to start with kind of the bottom of my nose. I do this kind of curve. That's kind of the middle bottom of my nose. And then I kind of loop it around like this, and I loop it around like this. This is kind of, those are the nostrils. I don't usually connect them, just kind of like I didn't really connect them in my eyes. I like to leave a little gap there just because our skin's all connected, and I like it to kind of appear that way. So we are going to there. I like to sort of do a little curved line up here. Now this line shouldn't really be super harsh. This is more or less a line we're using it to remember where to shade later. But usually you see a lot of people that will kind of draw noses starting with like a circle here, circle here, circle here. That's another way to do it. I just don't usually do it that way. So anyways, that's kind of the round side of the top of my nose. And then next, I'm going to add a bridge. And again, our bridges can be shaped in all different widths, and maybe it's more narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. This is just kind of the basic, again, blueprint of a nose. So again, I don't like to connect my lines. I will connect shadows when I get there, but just to kind of start, I don't. Something to keep in mind too, a lot of people, when they do their noses, they make these lines too dark. Make these lines lighter, or at least light enough to where they will be able to shade in really well, because we don't want to leave harsh lines on our face because we don't have lines for our nose. We have more or less shadows. Like we have bone structure, but there's not just these hard lines like we have on our lips and our eyes. So this is more for shading. So again, just like that, shading indicators is a shading indicator as well. Then we do actually have some lines for our nostrils. So I'm going to kind of come back over here, and I'm going to do almost like parentheses here, but I'm going to maybe keep it more narrow down at the bottom versus the top. And, you know, sometimes there's a number of just adjusting back and forth, but that's kind of the basic structure of a nose. After that comes the shading, and the shading is what really makes this feel realistic, okay? So I always start with the bridge of my nose. You don't have to, but that's where I prefer. So I'm going to pull some shading with my pencil away from my nose. So it's going to go darker to lighter. And I'm going to kind of also let that sort of wrap around my nostril now. I'm going to do that on both sides. Remember, if you're just trying to use a blending stick and it's not working, sometimes if you've got a bunch of graphite on your blending stick, this could be just fine. And honestly, what you could do, just in general, not necessarily with faces, but just as a general shading technique, let me find a good spot on my paper. If you prefer not shading with your pencil first, you can make you a little pile of graphite on a scrap piece of paper and come get your blending stick and kind of grab that graphite on your blending stick. And then honestly, that's a good way to avoid having pencil strokes left on your paper that you can't blend out. But I loaded this in. I'm going to use this in since I already have pencil on my paper now. So I'm going to kind of just lightly sort of buff this out. Just like I prefer kind of that circular motion when I'm blending on a face, just because, again, I feel like it gives that more of that skin kind of uneven, blotchy look that most people kind of have. There's probably some of those people that don't, but so I'm going to shade out, and I'm going to also kind of wrap the shadow under my nose too a little bit. We might have to go back and, yeah, well, I'll talk about under the nose a little bit later. But I'm going to kind of just fade this out. Remember, you don't want your shadows to just stop. You want them to fade out where you can't see a spot where your shadows begin and end. It should just be so vague. And if, like, I like how this side's blending, but I don't really like how my other side's blending. So, or if it's too textury, I would use the blending stick first, because I feel like if you start with the tissue too soon, it takes away too much shading. So I would use the tissue only if you need it to kind of smooth out. Okay. So we've kind of done the shading away from the face, but now we also need to do a little bit of, or shading onto the face. We need to do a little bit of shading on the bridge of the nose too. So I'm going to just take my blending stick, sort of like we did the crease of the eye yesterday. I'm going to pull a little bit of shading onto the bridge too. Now this is what happens. A lot of people, this step, this shadow right here, right on the bridge of the nose, is what makes noses feel smaller. A lot of people get in their head and they'll want to draw like their noses itty bitty, like really super skinny. I'm not kidding. Like, people will do this. This is a really bad quick example, but people will go really skinny on the bridge of their nose because they feel like if they draw it more accurate, it looks too big. So, but once shading helps slim things down, so you need to be more accurate with your spacing. And then when you add that shadow right there, that's going to tone things down, okay? That's the same rule applies when you're drawing fingers. Like, a lot of people think that fingers, when they sketch them, they're too thick, too big. But once you add those shadows, it looks right. So anyways, I did my shadow here, and I'm going to also, where I had that little line there, that's kind of where I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow there. So now I'm going to start connecting things only with my blending stick. So I had kind of sketched that circle right there. That's going to be kind of where, which I'd erased it. But that's sort of what I do with my shading, is I'll go in and I'll sort of put that circle in with my shadows. But that shadow is going to also have to come on the bottom of that. This is also a spot that kind of helps make our nose look smaller. It catches light right there on the end, but however you kind of shade that kind of helps determine the shape of the nose. Get that a little unevenly. Okay. I'm going to buff that out just a little bit with my tissue. And then I'm going to also apply some shadings on the bottom side of my nostril here and the bottom side of my nostril here, because this is the side of my nose that's angled down. So we're going to have more shadow there. I might kind of blend a little bit more. I don't want like a super bright circle here, so I'm going to kind of tone it down a little with my shading. I'm going to also pull a little bit, just like I did. I pulled a little bit of my shadow in from my bridge. I'm going to pull a little bit of my shadow in on my nostril too. Okay? So, then what I think makes this look best is when you go back in and you darken in your nostrils. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about it since we're working on noses. We have this little area above our lip. I'll address this also when we do our mouth too. That little skin between our nose and our lip. I usually do the shading on that when I'm doing my nose. So what I'll do is I'll kind of come down here and I'll do kind of like a parentheses. And I usually have a harder shadow right on the edge, and then it's kind of lighter in the middle. But then I'll have kind of this shading around here will sort of blend and connect to the side. Sort of like that. It looks funny shading wise when you don't have it, especially when we do our lip tomorrow, or actually I guess it'll be Monday since tomorrow's a Friday and we're doing sketchbooks. Some of the shading when it's by itself looks funny when it's not connected to the rest of the face. But you would kind of have that little Cupid's bow thing right there. Actually, the Cupid's bow is part of the lip, but that's right above the Cupid's bow. So I usually have that all together, and then I try to make this shadow right under the nose sort of just a little bit darker too. But that's kind of the basics of a nose. Again, it's going to be shaped differently for each person. That's just sort of the blueprint of a nose. You guys need to, if you are in my afternoon classes today, you need to make sure you upload a picture of your work for your participation today, since I am gone. So I'll be looking for those pictures on Google Classroom.